Hello everyone, my name is Ross the Alcheminiaturist, and this is another Turnip28 video. Now, let me introduce you to the Tallman. The Tallman is not really like every other unit. This is more of a piece of scenery than anything else. The rules describe it as a towering sacrificial site constructed by a band of hapless revolutionaries. The rules say that it can be something like a guillotine, hangman's noose, or something else constructed that would cause terror to those who see it. The original Tallman, as I have understood it, has to be visible to the entire battlefield, but not so ostentatious that it is a gigantic thing. This is human-made, after all. But this is a post-apocalyptic world. This has root vegetables taking over people and other things that just cannot be. So why would we limit ourselves to just something built? Let me show you something grown. As I call it, the limb tree. I started out by cutting the cork into a rough shape of the base, and then ripping that oval up into random chunks. I didn't really mind too terribly much how the shapes were cut and broken, as I knew they would be completely covered up later in the build anyway. I slapped the chunks onto the base semi-haphazardly, being mindful of making sure that the base was getting slightly narrower the higher I got, and had a sort of natural step to it. Cork is pretty absorbent, so absorbent that I don't actually like using super glue to glue it down onto bases, as it seems that more glue goes into the cork than into the adhering of it. All-purpose solvent-free Uhu Glue is now my go-to Glue-hu to have the best adhesion for the cork and base to each other, as well as other pieces of cork. With the base of the base dry, it was time to get on to the actual meat of the model, so to speak. I took 5 Barbie-style dolls that I had in my studio that I had originally picked up for Bareth the Cry of Old Paint's War Barbie 2023 challenge that I just never got around to doing. If you search War Barbie 2023 on Instagram, you can see all of the cool conversions and kit bashes that were done, as well as the winners of that challenge. First, I needed to separate the arms and legs of the Barbie-style dolls from their torsos. I also took the heads off, as I had a cool idea to incorporate them as well, but that didn't work out the way I wanted to, so I just ended up pitching them in the end. These dolls suffered from really bad mold line-itis, so I used the flat end of my knife and shaved off all of the mold lines from the legs and the arms, as best as I could, without trying to make a mess of the rest of the limb while doing so. The next part was to cut the joint parts off of all of the legs to try to give them a more uniform, flat surface, and also give me a much easier surface in which to work with and for the glue to adhere to. Once all of the arms and legs were cut, it was time to attach them all to the base. I spread a bunch of super glue onto the cork and then dumped a very healthy amount of baking soda onto the super glue to activate it and make it crystallize before it could be absorbed into the cork and to be rendered useless to this and force me to apply even more glue. I then applied more superglue to the cut legs of the dolls so that they would adhere to the crystalline superglue. With the most minimal amount of help, I said the most minimal amount of help. With it not working 100% how I wanted it to for the first leg, I quickly added a second leg to help keep the first one more sturdy. as well as stabilize the second leg. I repeated this process for every other leg, and with the final leg in place, I made sure to add more superglue in between the legs to add another point of adhesion contact so that they would have more rigidity than they would only being attached at the bottom. With the legs part of the limb tree done, I moved on to the arms. They were, like the legs, cut just above the joint at a more or less uniform length for all 10 arms. I did, however, change a little bit of the placement of the baking soda. Instead of having more and more baking soda be on the legs, I batch sodaed the arms with superglue and soda and then let them activate. I then added glue to the leg where I wanted the arms to be and pressed them together. I definitely wanted the limb tree to look like, well, a tree, so I focused the arms at the ankle-calf area of each leg, as well as trying to position the arms so that they had the most amount of surface-to-surface contact with the legs as possible. This mostly meant that the arms needed to be glued at more of an angle in the crevice in between the legs than right on the legs themselves. Any place that did not have glue to soda, but was touching another piece, got glue as well to help keep everything in place. Then came the painting. As you probably already know, the priming step comes first. So to keep with the idea that this limb tree was going to be wrong, I started priming with AK Interactive's Black Primer and got it in every single nook and cranny. No place on the model or base was safe from the black primer. You know what zenithal highlighting is, right? Well, if you don't, the Cliff Notes is that it is highlighting the top part of the model with white and transitioning to black for the base to keep with proper shades. Well, this is not the case for this model. This model has what I'm calling nadir highlighting, or more simply, highlighting the bottom of the model instead of the top. The limb tree is supposed to be many kinds of wrong, so why have shadows where they should actually be? That's crazy. Once the nadir highlighting was done, I took Citadel's Rakarth flesh and threw it through the airbrush and onto the base of the tree. I really wanted to drive home that the tree was definitely not supposed to be like this at all, as if the legs and hands did not already give it away. I also slapped it onto the base to cover everything that was primed both black and white, so that any part of the base that could show through later didn't have a huge effect as white would have. The next paint to go through the airbrush was Vallejo. The next paint to go through the airbrush was Vallejo's Parasite Brown. I honestly can say that I didn't pick it for its name, but its name is pretty apt and fitting for this model. It was just the brown that spoke to me most for the top part of this model, nothing more. I laid the paint on thicker the higher up the tree I went, trying to get a sort of fast and easy blend between the flesh tone and the brown tone without putting too much effort or thought into it. Once the brown was on the tree, I took ProAcryl's Bold Titanium White and dry brushed it all over the arms, feet, and on the most visible side of the legs of the tree to give it a tiny highlight before the next stage. Those of you who have seen my other Turnip28 videos know that I have an absolute love for streaking grime. It is the near perfect addition to any paint job done for this wargame. I mean, Turnip28 is dirty, and by dirty, I mean filthy, nasty, gross, muddy, and just plain drab. Any colors that would be on someone's uniform or clothes are probably so caked in blood, mud, sweat, tears, and viscera that everything is just tones of brown and grime over everything and itself. I then took off some of the streaking grime with mineral spirits and Q-tips. At this point, you could call the model done. But I wanted something else, something to really make it show that this tree is alive. Grabbing my other Uhu Glue-hu, the proper one for models, I squeezed some of it into a small cut cup bottom and used a toothpick to pick up some of it and spread it around the model on the ends of the hands and feet, being careful to go slow enough that strands were created, but also fast enough that the glue wasn't curing where I didn't want it to. This is the first time I've ever used that Glue-hu from Uhu, but I really like the effect that it gave. With the Glue-hu done, I can actually call this model done. If you've made it this far, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for watching this. And why not leave a like and a comment? And if you're really feeling generous, hit that subscribe button. As always, I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.